stand here and tell me that you're actually in love with this woman, are you?
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Live Coding with RabbitWerks JavaScript. This is episode 13 of the Tasker app series, and we are working with Vue.js in this project. And so if we want to take a look at what we got so far, we got just a basic task component and our add task component and our completed component. So three main things going on at the moment. And we got some progress tracking. You can delete tasks, and I'm not going to delete that one at the moment, but we also have local storage working as well. So if I add a task just to see what's going on, and this is an error that we're going to look at in just a minute here, but for now, if we just take a look at the application, and you see everything is getting stored in a JSON string essentially in our local storage, and it updates the local storage basically when we delete a task, if we edit one of these steps, if we add a new task, all that good stuff. So cool. Let's see what we can do about this error that popped up here. So let's look at our code base, and there we go. Close that. So just a couple things to look at for the live stream to do. Right here is what we're going to look at right away, is the error that popped up right here. Maybe take a look at these checkbox attribute script that checks all of them, because it's not quite right, so we'll have to fix that, and then fix this delete task bug that's going on. So just a couple different adjustments, and then after looking at this app for the last handful of days, I was deciding that I'm going to probably rearrange the layout a little bit, and instead of being able to toggle between add task and completed like that, I think we'll do toggle between the completed tasks and the current tasks in kind of the same fashion, and then we'll also probably move this add task component to the top of everything. So just kind of like laying out the whole app, and we'll see what happens with all that. So cool. Let's get started looking at this error really quick though, and see if we can get that knocked out, and then we'll see where we go from there. Thank you for tuning in to RabbitWerks JavaScript Live Coding. Music is brought to you by freeCodeCamp Radio. Unofficially, go check them out, check out the links, and check out the free resources that they got. It's really cool. So if you want to check out this app, that the progress so far, it's hosted on Netlify. The link is in the chat, and you can also look at the GitHub repo as well and take a look at the code on your end. So cool, let's get into it and get started. So what I want to do first is we're going to address this error that popped up here, and let's take a look at it. And it says error in event handler for grab steps cannot read property value of undefined. Alright, so what is that telling us? Let's go look in. This is coming from submit steps in the add steps component at line 103. So let's take a look at that. I think it's just this one right here and line 103. So for some reason this line of code right here is throwing an error, and it's throwing an error when we don't have steps that we're adding. So say for instance, if we have a step that we're adding to the task, we just put it in, put a title in really quick. It doesn't throw an error. I can show you one more time with the console cleared so we can take a look. So no error. The issue happens is when we add a task that doesn't have any steps in it, so it's throwing that error saying it can't grab any values from the steps array because there's nothing in there because we never added anything in the first place. So what do we have to do to fix that? Well, let's take a look and see. We only want this submit steps. We only want to submit the steps if we have something there in the first place. So basically we probably want to wrap this thing in an if statement and just check if the, what is it? Steps array, the length of it, if it's greater than 0, there's something in there, so we'll have to check for that, and if not, we'll just return because we don't want anything to happen. And okay, so down here on the submit steps method, I'm gonna start off. Let's write an if statement. So we'll say if this dot steps dot length is greater than 0, then we want to run all of this code, right? Else we're just gonna want to return because there's nothing in there and we don't need to add anything. So we'll just return for now. We might have to do some we might have to add in some sort of like state management, so when we push this to the main task list, it knows that there's nothing there, and we'll just like say we don't have any additional details, we don't have any steps, we're just gonna hide that stuff. We don't want it showing up blank like this because that looks silly. And when we get some buttons going on in here along with the delete task, we'll probably be able to add that stuff in after the fact, but for the most part I think we'll just hide this stuff if there's nothing in, no values for those fields, and see how that looks and then go from there. Okay, so we have this conditional check in here, the if statement, and so let's see if this throws an error now when we add a task without any steps. And click the add task. Let's see, did that work? I can't tell. Cannot read property value of undefined. Okay, so let's see. There's something else that we have to do on top of that. If this .steps.length is greater than 0, then we want to run that. Else we're just going to return. Let's get rid of these really quick. And I think we're going to run into our other bug really quick while we're at it. Let's see. Yeah, so when we get to these, like the second to last entry, or like when we only have 2 entries, we click the delete task and it's not deleting it. So that's another bug that we'll have to fix, but for right now we're working on this error here. So let me just pull up the error one more time so we can see what it says. Oh, okay. So we refresh it, and I think that actually took care of it. And we just needed to refresh our page. Let's see. So let's say there are no steps, and add new task. and no errors, so perfect. That's what we were looking for. And perfect. Okay, cool. So if we have a task with a title, a blah, and add some steps with blah, another blah, add it, and it's good to go. And we can just add a title for a task and just add it without any errors as well. Cool beans. Okay, so we got that taken care of. Alright, let's look at this delete task bug and see what's going on. So if we look at the method for that, it is on our main task list component. And let's see if we can recreate what was going on there. So we just start trying to delete tasks, and the second entry right here isn't working. Let's see if we can delete anything else. We can delete that one. Can delete that one. We can't delete that one. We can't delete that one. So something's going on here. So we should be able to delete those. And yeah, I'll put some margin top between this. Actually, I don't think the button's gonna stay there. It's just a temporary house for it. We'll probably do like a component with, I think there's going to be a total of 3 different buttons. We'll probably just do a component inside this that has the buttons in there and just keep them stored in that, instead of just hard coding them or just coding them up in our markup or the main task list component. And cool, so let's take a look at that method for the delete. So right here on delete task, so basically we're passing in the iteration of the task that we're on for the v-for loop. And what are we doing? So we're taking this .task list .splice the task ID and then just one entry out of the array. Alright, well I don't think, let's see, let's console log task and see what we're working with. And let's just click delete, hit OK, and let's see, I think this is it right here. Yeah, so this is our task right here. Got completed, details, nothing in there. Okay, so steps, task, our task title, and what else do we got in here? ID 3, and that one's pulling up. Interesting. So it looks like it's pulling up for this iteration that gets passed in. It pulls up ID of 3. And which one is that? So let's look at the view. Dev tools, app, task list. And so these are our tasks and objects in the array. I need like a little bit more space with this. Okay, so it's pulling up the third one, right? Because that makes sense. It corresponds with the task title. And that's the one we clicked. What about, okay, so let's say task dot ID, just to see what that brings us. I'll delete that one. 0, 6. Okay, so this one has an ID of 6, so it's trying to delete the 6th index of the array because it's going off of the current task ID. But you can see where that's causing a problem because there is no 6th entry. If we look at our array in the dev tools, you can see there's only 2 objects or 2 items in the array. So this task.id is not working. So we need to figure out how to make it work. Well, let's look up at our for loop and see where we can probably get that information from. Okay, so where are we calling this method at? Right here on the button. We are calling the method and click delete task and passing in the instance of the task, or the iteration of the task. And let's see, so right up here is where we're using the v-for directive to loop through every iteration of, or every item in our array, our task list array. So right here we're passing the task, and I think what we'll need to do is we're going to need to grab or utilize the index argument in the v-for directive. And so in a for loop with this, the way we access the index of the iteration that we're on is actually in the v-for task and task list. In this task, we're going to wrap that in a set of parentheses, and it's going to not only have one argument, it's not only going to have one argument as the task, but we're also going to pass in as a second argument I, and the second argument is the index of the iteration of the for loop or whatever. So where it would be like let I equals 0, if I is less than blah dot length I plus plus. The I is the index of the array, or through the iteration or whatever, and that's what this I right here is in the v-for loop. So we're going to utilize that. So now that we have this accessible, we can use it, and we're gonna say, let's pass it in with this delete task method along with the iteration of the task that we're on. So we're passing in the task and the index that we're on, and with that we should be able to use the index instead of, so we pass that in as a parameter in our method as well. And so we'll say, let's just console log I and see what that gives us. Bring up the console tab and we'll refresh everything just for good measure and hit delete. So we got 0. Let's hit this one, and we got 1. Cool. So let's do this. Let's take out this task ID and just pass in the index. And then for right here, we'll leave this the same because we want the task information, because we're going to ask to confirm that we want to delete this task. So when we say, do you want to delete this task, and then the task name is blah 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 blah. So hit OK, and now it works. Cool. And we're actually deleting the correct entry from the array and targeting the right entry from the array with the splice method now, versus see, if we were doing this with a MongoDB or like a database or something like that that had generated IDs, that's something that we didn't do, then it would be trying to splice an entry of an index from, like, I don't know, 16 billion or something like that, because it's like a 32-digit character or string or something like that. It's just crazy. So this is gonna work, and the other way is not gonna work. So we'll keep going on that, and so I'm just gonna delete this one, and we are all done with all of our tasks. We just deleted them. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete this task data. And if we remember from last time that when we load this component for the first time, it's going to check local storage to see if there's an item in there called with the key value of task data, and it's going to load that data into the task list. But if there's nothing in there, it's just going to say console log no data found. We're going to return, and right now we have some hard-coded data in our app.view file. No, not this one. Where is it? Let's see. Task list. Oh yeah, it's minimum, or it's compacted right now, so we have some default hard-coded data just to fall back on for the time being. Cool. So let's look at our work log, and we got this fixed. Plus sign that. Alright. Let's see. Cool. So the next thing let's look at is this checked attribute bug. So what I'm talking about with this is if we refresh it, you see it populates with our hard-coded data. So let's see, we want to add a task, and I will demonstrate what we're looking for. And most of this is pretty accessible. I do need to get accessibility options so I can tab into these guys, because we can go up and down. We can traverse this all with just using the keyboard, except these three icons right here, and that's just because they're SVGs. So getting those hooked up with some accessibility would be really cool at some point. So yeah, so it just demonstrates the accessibility feature, and a lot of that is just coming with the Bootstrap library, Bootstrap Vue library, or whatever. Or wait, we're not using Bootstrap Vue on this, we're just using regular Bootstrap stuff. But yeah, okay, let's add this, and we look at it and we see we got our tasks in there, and it's got the checkboxes. Cool, and that works. But see how we click this completed or main master complete checkbox, I guess you would say, checks everything on all the boxes. Well, we don't want that. We want it just to check the boxes for the iteration of that task. So just these ones, and then just these ones. So let's look and see if we can figure out what's going on with that. And we can just look at the code, and we'll probably be able to point it out really quick. Let's take a look at what's triggering this, so the method on that, and we'll take a look and go from there. Alright, and I believe it's in the task details component. Oh yeah, right there, already highlighted for us and everything. Excellent. Well, what do we want to do in this now? Because right now we're just running over a query selector, all vanilla JavaScript style, and selecting the step.check or step checkbox, and setting all of them to checked based on it, if this is true or not, if the task complete is true or not. We don't want that, so let's not do that. What do we want to do to get that? We need the index, like most other things in life. We always need a solid index, I guess. I don't know. Okay, so we just need to set that parameter up really quick. We'll do it like this in this case. It doesn't really matter when we're writing our own methods which order you set your argument or your parameters up in. in this case. So most of the time when you're doing this front end, like whatnot, if it's a method you're writing, it doesn't really matter as long as you know what they are. And we need to go up to the markup. And let's see, where is this at? Task complete, toggle step complete. Let's take a look really quick. Set task as completed. So we're looking for that right here. Set task as completed. And let's see, so how are we going to get the index? Oh, wait. Let's see. Okay, so this is for the steps. Because our method is outside of the v4 loop and we need the index. I guess we don't necessarily need the index. We can use the ID. Yeah. We'll use the ID because in this case we are going off of the specific ID of the task, not necessarily the index, because it's not an array. I mean, it is an array, but not in this instance. This item isn't an array. So we need to pull up the task ID. So we're passing that in already. And let's just head down to our method right here, and let's say that we want to just put that on hold for a second. And we'll say console.log ID. I just want to see what's going on with that. And so what do we want to do? When we click this task or complete button, we want these three to check, but just for the current task item. So we will say, what do we have?
I've watched you lately. You look so hunted. Come on, lie down. Put your head on my lap. You just go to sleep now.
Okay, just thinking about how we're going to go about this, and I just want to click on that and see what we're getting. So where are we getting? Oh, from the progress bar we're getting those additional console logs. So we want to look at the task details. Let's see. This is 0, and this is in fact ID 0. But if we click this one, we should get 1. We do get 1 right here. And we get 1, 0. Okay, I gotta turn this progress bar console log off because it is getting really hard to tell the difference. And we'll do right here. We can just actually, that's fine. We'll leave it in just for the time being. So now if we clear this stuff when we console or we toggle between the two, we got 1, 2, or 0, correct? Yeah, perfect. And let's see. So we can close that out, and in here we want to say, let's console log this. I want to see what this is in this instance. View component. Look at all this neato Toledo stuff we got. Excuse me. And so if we just say this.id, would it have it? This._id. And let's give that a whirl and see what happens. Zero. Okay, cool. So that's what we'll do. Or wait, can we even say... Maybe we don't even need to write a method for this. Let's look at the markup for a second. And let's see. Checkbox right here, complete wrapper. Complete wrapper, okay, so it's right here. And let's see if we can bind to the checked equals step dot step completed. Okay, so if we're binding to the checked attribute for the value of step dot step completed for the true or false. Let's give it a shot. Cool. And it just does it for its appropriate one. We didn't even have to write a method for that or any type of like a function. Cool, perfect, awesome. That's what I was going for originally, but we were getting tripped up when we were creating this component and took some time off, come back to it, and it gets better and we figure it out. So cool, that's done. Now we get into the fun stuff. So we got some debugging done. We got things back to where we like them and working. All right. And let's see. So what I could do, I think, is let's take a look at our app.view and see if we can start rearranging this app a little bit. So we have our three main components: the task list, the completed task list, and the add task. So I think what I will do is just move this line up above that, and vice same thing for this, just to kind of keep it in order with each other. So here's our app task list. And we have our app completed and our app add task and the secondary focus. So what I want to do is take this app add task, we're going to copy it for now, or I'm sorry, this is the app task list, and we're going to place it in here, the div, the secondary focus components, and we'll just paste it in there. And we want to take this property binding to it as well. Cool. And let's just comment this out really quick. And what's that doing for us? We're moving. We got add task up there. We have the titles like that. And we'll say we don't need this property binding on that anymore. We can just take this whole line, cut it out, and we'll put it right here. Oh, not that one. My apologies. What's going on? We need all that stuff. This is the one we want to take out. The add task, and we're going to put it up above everything. So that's up there. We'll change this to current tasks. And then, so we have that up there. We'll need to put our title in for the add task component. Because we'll have a bunch of this stuff in here. And we want to have the add task at the beginning or the top of it. And we have our alert will pop up right here. So it kind of puts it more in the focus of the user. That would be cool. And let's just give this a title really quick. And this add task, we don't need this binding anymore. Or the prop passed in. Get rid of all this. And if we go into add task component, go at the top of it, and this div display wrapper, we don't need that. But we will put an H2 here, and it's just for add task. And we wanted to give that the class of shadow white, and that gives us the task or the background kind of thing. We could even put that, use the text right bootstrap class and just throw it over to the right. I don't know, kind of like offset it a little bit. I feel like maybe the task button should be over there and this should be to the left. I also feel like this RabbitWerks tasker title is going to have to change at some point pretty soon, but we'll see. The idea is to have this on the top and then be able to like toggle back and forth between these. So let's go down here and we should have an extra div hanging out now. Right here. And then we can just grab everything. Bring it back. Just a touch. Get it re-all lined up and stuff. Okay, so that's good to go. We got that working. Now, let's get our prop set up for this show completed tasks component or method thing. So show completed task, that we need to go into our task list spacing this stuff out a little bit so I can see it better, I can read it better, tell the differences. And there we go, just making it look a little more legible. A little more clean. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to open up this app task list component again. Task list. Let's look at that, and we need to go down to our data properties, and if we don't have a props component yet, or component, we don't have a props property yet, so we're gonna set that up in our Vue instance, and so we'll say props. We just need one, so it'll just be an array consisting of a single string, and it's gonna say show completed task. Can't remember if it's, I think it's with an XNS component. Tasks component, yeah. And so we have that in there now. Let's set this all into that display wrapper that we had on the other app. So we'll just take all this, and in the card, we will just cut everything for the time being and just say display wrapper, just so we know what it is. And that doesn't have any CSS styles associated to it, but it does have a name associated to it, so we can tell what is what. We know that that's for this display wrapper. And we don't need this commented out image tag anymore. So okay, so this is gonna be, let's look at the other one and just see what we did with it. So the completed task component, we look at it, it's the display card. Okay, so it is on the card. We can say put it on the card itself in this case. So we'll just do that instead of having a separate div around it. And then vShow. So that's the directive we want to use. And so let's take this and put it on there. Delete that, select everything. Move it, but oops, not that. Move it back. And delete this other div tag. So working backwards a little bit, but that's alright. Alright, so in here we'll say we have the class. We also need props. So we'll say vShow and set that to the prop we set up. So show completed task component, because that's what we're passing in as a prop right down here. And then we pass the value of that in with this click event to this right here. So both of these components get the same value, and based on that value, they either show one and hide one, or show the other and hide the other. And let's see. We need an exclamation mark in there though. There we go. So if we click on these, we can toggle back and forth. That looks nice. Oh, now the SVG changed up there, and if we add a new task down here, that's colors changed as well. We were having an issue with that the other night, and it wasn't changing colors, and I thought I was going crazy, and I was just missing something plainly obvious. But I was looking at it on another system, another browser, and a different machine the next day, and it was working just fine, changing it with the dev tools. So yeah, I don't know, but let's get these looked at really quick, because I wanted to do kind of like a really light gray on them, not this really dark color. The original idea was to have it gray, because these blacks are just like really throwing the whole thing off. So let's see if we can get something a little nicer to look at going on there. So we don't need these open anymore, and we got that done, and we got all this done too. So the next thing we could probably do is look at the completed task and see what we're doing in there, and the buttons on our tasks, we'll have to do those. Alright, so let's open up our SVG components and see if we can adjust those colors. Let's start with the important. And if we change the color on that guy, let's see. No, it's in our add task, steps. Okay, so all of the colors are changing to what we have them set to in the text editor, because the other night they weren't doing that. So let's get them fixed. And so this is the default color. I want that to be kind of like a really light gray. Even lighter than that. Let's see. I think that's actually selected. Yeah, let's try it now. A little too gray, a little too light. Let's see. A little too dark. You know what we could do is just, instead of doing it like that, let's try 0, 0, 0 and do RGBA and adjust the alpha. So let's say 0.5, 0.2. And then we can say RGBA down here and just say 1 for full, and we can set it as, we need a color at that point. RGBA, and let's see if it changes. Okay, cool. So let's go to the work log. We'll grab my bright green, change that instead of this RGBA, and then we'll change it right back to the RGB, and then we can set that as so. So it still looks a little, there we go, maybe that'll work. I don't know, does that lose its legibility? I don't know. That should work. Okay, so we have those two set up properly. Now let's do the same thing with Let's do the same thing with the question mark, so the optional SVG. Run down here, fill. What did we have it set? We want it to be the same. Let's just grab that so it's just a quarter opacity. Shouts to Navi. And right here. Set that, and we can do the same thing. I wonder if we even need to do that. It'll just change it. It won't. Yeah. Cool. That gives us a lot better definition of what it's doing, especially for the blue one or the optional. Delete it. What we should do for this delete is that we don't have that as an SVG yet, but what we should do for the delete is just have it go solid black or like something. When it'll be like this grayed out color, and hover over it, it'll go black, so it's not so piercing. But cool. And RabbitWerks tasker. I don't know, what are we gonna do with that title? So I know it's has some margin on the top to push it down right now with the container, I believe. Let's see. Oh, padding. And I don't know, we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with the title, but let's look at. So this signifier right here is finished. Or, I'm sorry, it's not finished, it's oh, interesting. So that clicks it, it adds our pointer class right there. We don't necessarily want it right there. We just want the pointer class on our action buttons, not when it's right there. So let's see. We look at the file and it says right here it adds that pointer class. If we took that off of this one and we put it back into the add steps and label input step group input important. Oh, this is the wrong component, not the add steps. We need to go into task list and the details, and right here is where we're going to want to set that. So, or no, I'm sorry, we were in, so this is the component right here that we don't want. We want the pointer class on these guys, this one right here. Sorry, completely confusing myself, but that's okay. So not the task details, but in fact the add steps component, and right here on this one we want to add that class. So we'll say class equals just straight up pointer. And that should give us that pointer when we hover over it. Cool. And we don't have it on that one. Perfect. So we got that all situated now. Let's look at our buttons, our management buttons for, is it in this? So if we close this, we need these buttons to be in their own component. let's see. Task list and expander, details, expander, progress bar. We want it inside this task list component. We also don't want it necessarily showing if it's closed like that. We just want the task title and the progress bar. And if it's, even if we don't have any steps or additional information and we're hiding that, we'll still toggle it down and drop down the buttons, because we could, I don't know, hide the buttons or whatever so they're not just a bunch of buttons sitting there. And maybe we could just even use icons for instead of buttons, but we'll see how that goes. I like the kind of the button idea. We can go see what happens from that point on. And let's see, so let's open up task list and the app. Oh, let's just have this open for the time being. Just want to throw in an HR. Maybe not an HR, but definitely some margin bottom for the time being. I'll just push it away just a little bit. And this container, we want padding top to be 4. There we go. And it just gives it a little better spacing. And so the task list, let's take a look at that, and we can go up into our markup. So we have our button right here, and that's the delete task button. And what else did we want? So we wanted, so if it's complete, we want archive task button. Basically it'll move this task to the completed task list. And edit additional details button. Since we can edit these just by clicking on them. We don't need a button for those, but we do want to be able to edit this stuff. That'll turn it into a text field and like contact info kind of stuff. And let's see, add a date completed property to finish task. So when we move it to the completed task array, we want to have populate this date completed property. So let's see what happens here. Edit additional details. And I wonder if we need like a clear button on this. We could have a clear, like clear form or something like that. Just so if we have it all filled out and we don't want to add it, we can click that and it'll just erase it. So let's see. Cool. Okay, so in the task list, let's just give this a little bit of margin. Just to give it a little space there. And let's add another button. btn. Let's see, what do we want to call this one? Let's look at our colors. Could just do the main Turk and so the additional details will want to have the same color, and the completed one we want that bright green. So let's just say button success, gives it that green color. And we will say archive, archive, task, archive. We need the same margin top 3 class on it. Margin right, oops, 3, too much, 2. So they got a little bit of margin. And one more button, and it'll be button.btn.btn-info tab, enter, edit, details, and that's going to need the margin top 3 and margin right 3. 2. Actually, that probably won't even need it. If we're just gonna have 3 buttons, so we don't need that one to have it for now. Alright, now we have our buttons in here, and we will get these hooked up and do some cool stuff after this. And I'm gonna step away for just a minute, take a quick break, get the blood flowing, get a drink of water, and we'll be back in just a few with some more live coding. You tuned into RabbitWerks JavaScript and another awesome night with Vue.js and freeCodeCamp Radio. Stay awesome, and we'll see you in a few. Alright, and we are back. Awesome, awesome. And picking up where we left off, we had these buttons. But let's just take a quick second to thank you, the viewer, for checking out my stream on your busy night. I know it's a lot of stuff out there, but you chose to watch this, so that's awesome. So keep it up, subscribe, like, comment, chat, check it out, and get involved. And I just appreciate it, and thank you from RabbitWerks JavaScript. So the next step for us on our agenda is to get these buttons to do something. And let's see, so we got this archive task button, we got the edit details button. Is there anything else that we can think of that we could use on there? Might reorder it just a little bit, but put the delete task button on the bottom. Move that over like that. Just give everything margin right 2 for the time being. I think these have margin left 0 or 1 on them, so if I were to say on this middle one, margin left 0, I think it'll move over, maybe not. Okay. Either way. So we have those. Do we want to throw them over to the right? Or we could put the delete task button over there. So if we flexbox this, so for instance, let's just copy this or cut this all out, put it in a div, throw it in there like that, and let's just tab that out. If we take these two and say we'll do the same thing, put those in a div, put those two buttons in their own div so they can hang out in there, and then we could put this one in its own div, and I think we will, just to keep things concise. And it looks correct, although this doesn't look correct. So space, tab, 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 and there we go. Got goofed up there. Oops. Okay, so now we have these two divs that we just made. Let's give those some definition so we can see our component, hint hint, a little bit better. And now on this parent div, we're just going to give it a class of our global flexbox space between. That should, boom, exactly what we wanted right over there, and even space in between. So we have this, and we'll just have this be let's say we'll have it be disabled by default until the task is complete. So if we do that, kind of lose definition a little bit because of the green background. what if we change it to our primary color? So our main turquoise, the RabbitWerks main turquoise, primary. It looks like it shows up a little bit better. And alright. Maybe we could have this be an outline. Is it dash outline info, or is it, no, it's dash info dash outline. Oops, that's the wrong one, and that's not what it's supposed to be anyways. Danger button dash outline. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to. We could probably drop the padding on the top and the bottom on these two because they're a little tall for this. And yeah, let's just take this outline out for that, and can save padding Y for top and bottom, and we'll just say 2 to see what that looks like. That's what it's set at. Let's see, 1. There we go. I don't know if that looks too skinny or not. What we need to do is take give this progress bar a little bit of padding bottom or margin bottom. Take the margin top off of these. And it'll make sense why I'm doing that in a second. You can see, well, you can actually see it right here. So if we have margin on the progress bar, it'll space the buttons as they're right there. And let's change just gonna copy those in there. It's a little bit thinner. Looks alright. And so we'll have to see what we're gonna do with see if we can get some custom checkbox styling going, because if we take a look at Mozilla and we pull up, you can see the checkboxes on this guy are small. So I don't know if you can change the style size on these ones for Mozilla or other browsers, but we'll have to see. If we can't, we'll have to make some like workaround for it. Like instead of a checkbox, we would just make a box, square box, and then like fade in an X to signify it's checked, like an SVGX or something like that. But we'll see if we can style these before we have to go that route. Just a side thought, I do like this big checkbox thing though. So for, I think what we want to do, you know what, why don't we put, I got an idea. Let's try doing this for a second. Let's put this edit details button in the second div, so it comes over here like that, and then if we use something like the vShow directive on this archive task button and just show it when this is set like that, so it's not there. And we have that information. For our task right here that gets generated. Let's just give that a shot. Let's say in this button tag, we're just gonna, before anything else, write in v show, and that's a view directive for the display to conditionally toggle the display using display, it says right there, versus the v-if, which uses it takes it out of the DOM, so it completely detaches it. And vshow, we want to set that to task dot complete completed. So what'll happen here is if we click that, it comes in. And let's just give this an ID so we can keep track of them a little bit better, and just say ID is archive and say the same thing, not the same thing, but the same idea for this one. We'll say task button dash edit details. Or you know what we're gonna do is use this convention I've been trying to get, just use like have a double hyphen as a separator. It's kind of like CSS BEM or whatever, but it's not that, so I just kind of liked something that I keep track of, try to keep track of stuff a little bit easier that way. It's like kind of separated by like the group that it's in and then what it is, instead of having a bunch of separated things. And we'll just do the same thing for this one, task dash button and then dash dash and then archive. And last but not least, our last button, ID equals task dash button dash dash delete. We don't need that task in there. We'll just say edit details because that's what we need. We don't need that, but we're just going to keep that in there just so it's explicit for us. And we click that, it shows up, and cool. So before we get any further along in this, I think what we want to do is just take this and turn it into its own component. So we'll just actually start by creating that component, and in our task list we'll say we want a new file, and we'll call it the, what do we want to call it? Oops. New file, we'll call it manage buttons .view, and type scaffold tab, give us a basic view template. We can close that so we can see the code. come back into our task list, and now we can take this whole section right here and just completely cut it out for the time being, bring it into our manage buttons component, and all of that. So we got that in there, and now if we import that, let's just correct the hierarchy or the cascadingness of this import stack. And then underneath there we'll say import manage, what did I call this? Manage buttons from right there, whoops. Manage buttons.view, and then we just need to register that, so let's just bring this up and this down here. Same, so it reflects our import statements, just so everything's concise. And we'll register the new component that we just made. So we'll say app dash task dash manage buttons, and it's just going to be the manage buttons component that we just made, and then we can just drop it in right here. App task manage buttons, and we'll probably take this app prefix out at some point. We can probably do that off session and just kind of clean up the code a little bit and update the languaging a little bit. And let's see if we got that in there. App task manage buttons. Let's see what the console is telling us. Completed of undefined, cannot read, completed of undefined, task. Okay, so it's just screaming at us because we have this right here at the moment. So we need to pass in the completed property. I guess we'll just pass in the whole task instance, and let's do that right now. So we'll just set up our data property just for the heck of it, and then underneath the data one we can have our props, and that's going to be an empty array. And let's fill that array with our task. And methods. That we will have our methods object, props array, data object, and now let's come in here and we can just pass in our props. We'll say task is equal to task. And that gives us our buttons, and it gives us that, but we can't delete anything yet. So let's see. If we look at our task list component, we come down to the methods, and this delete task button or delete task method right here. We're just going to take the whole thing and cut it out and paste it into our methods object on this component. And then we have the task and I. Do we need to pass I in as a prop in this case? Let's see. And progress bar. Just gonna make this look a little neater. And okay, so we have right there, we don't need that. Okay, so in our manage buttons, we need that I that I just deleted. And we gotta pass I bind to I, and that's gonna be equal to I. I think that should work in that case. Refresh everything, no errors. Let's try and delete it. Not read splice of undefined. Okay, so this is where that thing in Vueworks is really gonna come in handy when I start using it, is because it's all this multiple component data functions and whatnot. Okay, so what we want to do is come into our task list and come down to our methods, and right here we're gonna say delete task again, and oh, wait a second. Right here, actually. Let's see. So if we said event bus dot $on, and then said delete task, and then we need the index So in here we're gonna say we'll take these two lines of code right here. So this task list.splice and then this save to local storage method. We'll cut those out of that, bring them back to the task list and put them in this event bus listener that we just created. And instead of I, we'll just say the full word index. And then we don't need to console log that anymore. We will just say first we need to import event bus from main.js. Cool. So we have the event bus imported. Now we can use it, and let's just call an event with it. Custom event. So we'll say event bus.emit, and the name of it is going to be delete task, and that's just going to pass in I. And I think that's all we're gonna need, because we just need to pass in the index, which is that right there. And if we take a look at that, it should call the function in this component and result in deleting the task from the parent component's task list. Let's see if we can delete this test. And it's gone. No errors, no nothing. Good to go. Perfect. We have that, and that is looking good too. So now let's look at archive task button. We don't actually need that. But what we do need is save to local storage. Yeah, we'll just say archive We'll just say archive task. And what are we gonna need? We're gonna need the index of the array, or no, the ID of the array. I don't know. We'll just see what happens. We'll probably need at least an ID. And possibly an index. Let's swap them though. So it goes with the rest of them on this page. Kind of follows along. So archive task is gonna say. Okay, we don't. I got it. So let's say this dot task list brackets I dot it's going to take it from this array, and we need to push it to a new array in our completed. So we have that set up, I think, already. If we look at data, completed task list. I'm gonna have to pass it down as a prop, I think. Archive task. Let's just get this set up. Console.log. Hello task. And then in the manage buttons component, I just want to come in here and write a method. Archive task, and that should take just an index. And we'll just say event bus dot emit archive task, and we just need the trigger. We don't we can just say I, pass in I with it, and then underneath this local storage function, or yeah, actually after the local storage function we'll write it, so we'll say event bus dot on, and that's gonna be archive task. Archive task, and we need the index. We're getting the index from it, so let's just say index. Console.log index. So if we click that, nothing happens. Refresh it. Oh, because we don't have a listener set up on that button. Silly. Alright, so after the vshow directive, we'll do @click, and then we'll say archive task. Refresh it, and if we have this complete and click it now, I get the event. And let's pass in I wonder if that's going to give us the event again. Nope, just gives us the index. And that's fine, because we just need to push this into the other array. So we have that firing off. And let's see, up here in our archive task, instead of console logging index here, we'll say archive task I. I don't know if we need to take the second step, but we'll just give it a shot. Archive test. task. Oh, because I need to say this dot archive task because it's inside the Vue instance. Reference error I is not defined. What? Oh, index. Silly. Refresh. Try it again, and it says hello task. Okay. And back up here. Let's see. Can we just say event bus dot emit? Send task to completed list, and we'll say task list I, or is it index? It's index. Cool. So no, in this completed task list component, if we go to underneath our props and enter in the created lifecycle method, we can just do actually mounted, and in here we'll do event bus. I don't think we're importing it yet, so we'll import it. Import a named function inside brackets, or a named export. Import event bus from // main.js. Alright, event bus dot on, and that's gonna listen for send task to completed list. Yep, and then it's gonna give us our task. We'll say the arrow function will just say console.log task. And it's screaming at us. What is it saying? Reload prevented. Oh, because I tried to put it in the top from the TypeScript import thing. Screwed up everything. Let's see. No errors. Okay. It's like an auto importing thing. I gotta turn that off, but not to worry. Not worried about it right now. Let's give it a shot and see if we can send this over. Task list is not defined. Variant task list is not defined. This dot task list. Refresh it, finish it, and click archive, and it sends our task. Cool. And the last thing to do for the evening is get this pushed into the completed array. So we'll just say this dot completed task list dot push. and we'll just say task. And let's give that a whirl and see what happens. Let's do a different thing here. Let's just do finish me. Additional details. Today, I think, yeah. And then step check. Add task. Okay, no errors. And if we finish this, and moment of truth, archive task, so we see it, our object in the console. Finish me, and let's see. If we look at our Vue dev tools, in the completed task list, we have some more space to look at, and we pull this up. Completed task array, 2 objects in there, and let's look at what this is. Oh, and it's there. Excellent, cool. So we're passing, when we click that button, we're passing this task from our current tasks to our completed tasks, and there's just one thing left to do after we emit that, and that will be to this dot task list dot, we're gonna have to splice it from this now, so we'll say first argument will be the index and then 1 position. Okay, so what should happen now is if we click that and do that, it's taken out of there. If we look in here, it's not showing up there because I need to set up that v4. So on the li, we'll do the v4 really quick. v4 equals task in completed task list, and then what we need with that is a key, and that's going to be equal to can't do I in there. Task. Let's just do task. Index. Let's just try that one more time. Task index. And we need to bind to it. Can we just do I just want to try that. I don't know if it'll recognize it because I is capital. If we look at that, let's just say this task index again, task index again. And we need to switch out everything in here. Task.task. Let's see if that'll work. complete change in all this. Hopefully it works at the end of it. Alright, looks like everything's in there, and so if we go to the current tasks and click that and archive and go to the completed, it's in there. Cool. And okay, so that's all we're gonna get done for this evening, I think, but we got a lot finished on this. We got our whole app reorganized, we got a bunch of bugs fixed. Let's see, let's just take a look at the work log. We got add task with no steps, error fixed. We got the checkboxes attribute bug fixed. We got the delete task bug fixed. We got the whole thing reorganized and relaid out a little bit. And we got this now. So we got our complete task, archive task button, edit additional details. We need to look at this clear add task form button at some point, and we need to get this property in here when we pass in. So those will be a couple focuses for next session for sure. And I'll just give this a star. Cool. And then yeah, I'll add to this and look over it and see what we need to do. There's a couple more things that I want to finish, so we need to, or not finish, but get in there with this method now, and it's going to be, we need to store tasks, or completed tasks in ls2 to keep track of that. For the time being, and then yeah, and then get some sort of like global counters, maybe finally. Be cool. And we'll just say that we want to what was the last thing that we wanted to do? Oh, that's right, we need to set completed date on completed task. Cool. All right, excellent. We got that ready to go, so this is what we're going to work on next time, and I think this is a good place to call it for the evening. I just wanted to run through this one more time, and cool. So I will commit my code, push it up to GitHub, and that in turn will redeploy the Netlify site. So go make sure to check that out at the link in the description and the chat. Also check out the GitHub page, check out the repo. Make sure to give this video a like, comment, or subscription if you like what you see. If you want to see more, throw some ideas at me. I'm going to be looking for a new project pretty quick here when we get this ready and going. We'll see how it happens. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning into another live coding session with RabbitWerks JavaScript, and it's been a pleasure coding with you this evening. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at rabbitworks.js. Follow me on Twitter at rabbitworksjs without the dot. And cool. Thanks again, freeCodeCamp Radio, for the awesome beats and the chill vibes. We'll keep it rocking, keep the publicity going. And everybody else, I hope you have a wonderful evening. This has been Sean with RabbitWerks JavaScript, signing out. Until next time, stay awesome.